Should the Royals be leading off Jonathan India or Mike Yastrzemski? We'll give you our thoughts next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned into another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you listen to podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. For you first-time listeners wondering how this channel works, I will be bringing you episodes Monday through Friday, 30-minute episodes in length. And if you want that immediate reaction following each and every Royals game, you can check out Chance Lebo with the Locked On Royals postcast. You guessed it, it'll be right here on this channel. Very easy to find, and he'll go live for about 15 to 20 minutes for all of his shows. So sometimes a little bit longer depending on the game, sometimes a little bit shorter, again, dependent on the game, but he always does a great job breaking down what happened in either the night game or the day game of watching Royals baseball. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you that any questions, any comments, you can leave them right below in this YouTube video, or you can just reach out to me on Twitter, and it'll be very easy to get your answer on whatever question you might have. And it's perfect timing because Mailbag Friday is tomorrow. So we'll be going through everybody's questions ahead of the Royals' final part of the road trip against the Minnesota Twins. They'll be wrapping up that 9-game trip on Sunday with Ryan Berger on the bump. But we'll have our full preview of the Twin series for the final segment of today's show. To kick off today's show, we are going to be talking about the top of the order for the Royals. I know that a couple of days ago when we were doing our episode, we talked about what this lineup might look like once Jack Caglione returns. That might be this series. That might be next week. It might be a little bit longer. I truthfully do not know how well he is progressing and how close he is to returning. So I apologize for not having that exact answer, but he was eligible to come off the injured list on Wednesday. Maybe with the off day, it makes it easier to make a roster move before tomorrow night's game. Just haven't heard much. But when it comes to the top of the order, we saw on Wednesday night, Mike Yastrzemski lead off and Jonathan India moved down into the 7 hole. Mike Yastrzemski played really well. Jonathan India played really well. And I'd imagine that most people listening would say that's the lineup they need to have moving forward. And I'm going to give the pros and cons to both here. Because I do believe you can see the positives of last night's lineup. I'm also going to point out some negatives of why last night's lineup can't work all the time against right-handed pitching. So let's go with this specific lineup from Wednesday night. You had Mike Yastrzemski leading off. You had Bobby Witt in the 2 hole. You had Vinny hitting 3rd. Michael was 4th. Salvi was 5th. Then I believe Adam Frazier was 6th. I know Rave was 8 and Isbell was 9 and India was 7. So I can't believe I was forgetting who 7th was when we just said that Jonathan India was hitting 7th for the first time this season. And I do believe that against right-handed pitchers, that is your most advantageous lineup. I believe that Mike Yastrzemski leading off gives the Royals a better plate appearance than Jonathan India could. Because out of the All-Star break, Jonathan India was hitting under 200. And honestly, his on-base percentage was a bit inflated because of how many times he's been hit by a pitch. That's random, though. That doesn't really take any skill. I would say that takes more toughness, and he is one tough dude. But this lineup, I believe, against right-handed pitching gives you a much better look because you go lefty, righty, lefty, righty, righty. And when you have Jonathan India up there, you have 2 righties to lead off the game. Not that it's the end of the world, but if you listen to me long enough, you would know that going righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, having that balance in the lineup, it is important for later on in the game when there's a bullpen move and you don't want to have 3 straight hitters that are hitting from the same side. It's not always going to work out perfectly, just like that bullpen moves is not always going to happen when you're facing 3 straight lefties or 3 straight righties. But the downside to going with that lineup, right? So the positives are Mike Yastrzemski gives a better at-bat than Jonathan India as of right now. he's also got a ton of experience leading off. In fact, he's got more experience leading off, if I'm not mistaken, than Jonathan India. Takes pressure off Jonathan India. He's able to balance out the bottom of the order. Mike Yastrzemski and Randall Grichuk can do that as well. But I feel that you can get the most value out of Yaz when he's hitting leadoff. The downside to this lineup is that Mike Yastrzemski is a platoon bat. And that's something the Royals were fully aware of when they acquired him. Same thing goes for Randall Grichuk. And we saw this on Wednesday night when the Royals approached a scenario where they had runners in scoring position. Yaz had already hit 3 times in the game. They went to Randall Grichuk. Now, Grichuk smoked one to the deepest part of the ballpark at Fenway, and it wasn't out. It was the right move to pinch hit Yaz. But now you've got Randall Grichuk leading off. So if your thought process in it is when you get to the 5th and 6th inning, maybe a little bit later than that, it doesn't matter who's leading off. Because, yes, it would be great to have a table setter at the top of the order every single time you're batting. That's just not the case. If Randall Grichuk's hitting leadoff, there's not really a huge concern if he's leading off an inning again. Yeah, you'd prefer to have Yaz in that spot, but if you lead off Mike Yastrzemski and he's pulled in most games by the 6th or the 7th inning, if the bullpen's throwing a lefty when he's up, maybe that's something you just live with. But I would say that would be the downside to it, is the guy you have leading off trying to set the table and hitting in front of Bobby Witt Jr., he may not finish off the rest of the game. And that is something I do believe you have to factor in here. Now, against lefties, this is when it gets a little bit more interesting. Do you put Jonathan India back leading off because he's a right-hander and keep everybody else the same? Randall Grichuk hits 6th right behind Salvador Perez. You can load up the lineup with righties, but you've got somebody with leadoff experience in Jonathan India. The numbers have not been there this year. The numbers have not been there over the last couple of weeks. Against left-handed pitchers, though, if I'm being quite honest, I wouldn't hate to see Maikel Garcia in that spot. I know Maikel Garcia gives you a better chance to drive in runs hitting cleanup, but against left-handers, which I don't know if we'll see one in Minnesota, I know it's Joe Ryan tomorrow, I know it's Bailey Ober on Saturday, up in the air on who's going to be starting on Sunday. But if Maikel's leading off, Bobby's in the 2-hole, then you've got maybe Vinny hitting 3rd, Salvi back to cleanup, and Grichuk right behind him. I don't hate that lineup whatsoever. Jonathan India can still hit 6th or 7th. You take the pressure off of him, and you have a better table setter up top. You still got somebody that can drive in runs in the cleanup hole, and I would imagine the Royals could live with that. I just don't know if Jonathan India hitting leadoff with what he's produced for you this year is going to be the best plan. I would have thought, and I said this way back in the offseason, that Jonathan India was set up to have a career season. He had never hit in front of a guy like Bobby Witt Jr. And I would have thought more hittable pitches to him because you're not wanting to walk Jonathan India to face Bobby Witt Jr. with a runner on. It hasn't happened. And he had a 12.5 walk rate last year. That's now dipped below 10%. And maybe that's just the Royals' philosophy, putting the ball in play more, not valuing the walk as much. But if you are a player like Jonathan India, doesn't hit the ball incredibly hard, doesn't hit the ball for much power, you're kind of being relied upon to draw the walk, to work the count, and to do damage in that way. But it just hasn't worked out this year. And I feel that maybe you can take the pressure off of Jonathan India, putting him 6th or 7th the rest of the way. And then against right-handed pitchers, lead off Mike Yastrzemski. If the same scenario happens on Wednesday, or same scenario happens tomorrow night as it did on Wednesday, where you get to the 6th or the 7th inning, Joe Ryan's pulled for a lefty, and you got to go to Grichuk in that spot, so be it. Grichuk would probably get only one more at bat, and it's still not a bad bat you have in the lineup, just not quite the table setter that Mike Yastrzemski would be. But that would be my move. I know that Matt Quatrero didn't really reveal his hand on what the plan is going to be moving forward. It made a lot of sense to lead off Yaz against Boston on Wednesday because he had great numbers against Dustin May. I will point out that Mike Yastrzemski has good numbers against Joe Ryan. He's hitting 300 in his career off of Joe Ryan. So that's another opportunity. to lead him off against a guy the Royals just never seem to figure out. It's going to be a tall task to score runs off of him. We all know that. Very fortunate that this is no longer the Minnesota Twins team from a month ago or 2 months ago when they still had so many heavy hitters in that lineup. But that's my take. I believe that they should lead off Yaz against righties, and against lefties, I'm leading off Michael Garcia. I keep Jonathan India in the 6 or the 7 hole, and you live with that. Gives more balance, and it lengthens out your lineup just a little bit more. What do you think? Let us know in the YouTube comments below, and let me know on Twitter. We're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, let's check in on a couple of players post-trade over the last couple of weeks. That's coming up next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. Want to tell you about PrizePicks and whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs. I know preseason football is currently in action. We got college football just about 2 weeks away, and whatever you're thinking, you definitely want to get set up with PrizePicks because they make it so easy to get in on the game. Download the PrizePicks app and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, run your game. And it's going to be an exciting time. Of course, even though you're listening to a baseball podcast, football is where I like to put a lot of picks down, and PrizePicks is just so much fun. And how can you turn down a deal like that? $50 in a lineup after you play your $5. So with football right around the corner, can't recommend PrizePicks enough. It's only been a few weeks, a handful of games, and it doesn't really tell the whole story. But I thought some people out there might be a little bit interested in what the players for the Royals are doing and the guys they traded away and how they're doing. So we'll start it off with the first trade that was made, at least a big trade that we can talk about. And that is Adam Frazier for Cam Devaney. At the time, it was a very negative opinion from the Royals fan base about this trade. You thought Cam Devaney might get a shot in Kansas City. He had played so well in Omaha, and even though the numbers weren't as good from April and May, and comparing them to June and July, you felt that with what the bench was giving them, he earned at least a handful of games. Didn't happen. The Royals wanted to get more depth, and they wanted to get more reliability off the bench. And Adam Frazier, so far in Kansas City, has been able to do just that. I thought this was really interesting, whether you're a fan of WAR or not, because I know it's different with Baseball Reference and it's different with Fangraphs. But Adam Frazier, through these first 14 games in Kansas City, already has more WAR, this is Baseball Reference, not Fangraphs, than he did in all of 2024 in Kansas City. So that spanned 104 games. In these 14 games, Frazier's hitting .256. He's got a slug of .395, an OPS of .687, and an OPS plus of 90, which is 6 points higher than it was in Pittsburgh. He's got 7 RBIs, which is already about 32% the total he had in 2024. So I believe we've seen a more polished Adam Frazier, a better version than we saw last year, and he's been able to lengthen out that lineup a little bit. And has played good defense at second base, which the Royals have not gotten from Jonathan India. Now for Cam Devaney, I am really surprised that he was not called up right after the trade deadline. I was under the impression that Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was going to be dealt. He's a rental guy, and it could open up a spot for a younger shortstop to play in Pittsburgh. That was not the case. So Cam Devaney's still in Indianapolis, AAA for Pittsburgh system. He's played in 15 games. He's hitting .269. He is OPSing at .791. He has one home run and 4 RBIs. So that's what you've seen so far from Cam Devaney. 15 strikeouts and 9 walks, an OBP of .409, again, down there in AAA for Pittsburgh. I would guess he would get a shot in September if he's not called up in August, but that's the first look at the trade the Royals made, Adam Frazier for Cam Devaney. Then they had the Randall Grichuk deal. Grichuk so far has not been as good, I'd imagine, as the Royals thought he would be. Hasn't been crushing left-handed pitchers. He has been unlucky a little bit. I thought he was very unlucky on Wednesday night. Jarren Duran made a great play on the ball. I would say in a lot of ballparks, that's either out or that's banging off the top of the center field wall, scoring 2 runs. But he's only hitting 200 through the first 10 games with the Royals. He has an OBP of 259, a 60 slug for an OPS of 619, and an OPS plus of 71. As for Andrew Hoffman, who went to Arizona, he has appeared in 2 games so far for the Diamondbacks, an inning and 2/3. He's got 2 strikeouts, 1 walk, no runs allowed. Did see him pop up on Twitter the other night. Has stuff that really can move, and we all knew that as Royals fans, but seemed to have a pretty good debut for Arizona, while Randall Grichuk hasn't really had that signature moment just yet. Hopefully they can come this weekend when the Royals are taking on the Twins. Then you look at the Padres deal, the Royals getting Stephen Kolek, Ryan Bergert, and Freddie Fermin going to San Diego. I know this is going to make a lot of people happy because I don't believe anybody wants to see Freddie Fermin not perform in San Diego. But for what they were getting from their catching between Martin Maldonado and Elias Diaz, man, has Freddie Fermin become a fan favorite quickly in San Diego. He's only played in 5 games. He's hitting .438 with a 500 OBP, a slug of 500, and OPSing 1,000 with an OPS plus of 181. He's already driven in 3. He's got 7 hits so far, a double. Knowing a few Padres fans, they absolutely love him. And I love that for Freddie. I'm glad he's got this opportunity, and I hope he gets to be the starting catcher for a Padres team that makes a deep run into the postseason. As for the Royals, Ryan Bergert, we know what he did in Boston, 5 2/3, only 2 earned runs allowed. He's going to go on Sunday against Minnesota. Man, I believe that might be the gem for the Royals at the deadline with what he has to offer. That fastball usage was down a little bit on Wednesday. Good news is slider usage, sweeper usage was up, and he really had solid command of it. So he'll be taking on Minnesota for the series finale. Fingers crossed the Royals will be going for a sweep. As for Stephen Kolek, he did throw a quality start in his first AAA outing. He should be going either tomorrow or Saturday, I would imagine. And he was in that start where he went 6 innings, gave up 3 earned runs. 2 of them came in the first inning. Now, he did give up 9 hits. Not the best to see, dealing with a lot of base runners, but he hasn't had great numbers in AAA this year anyway. He's actually had better numbers in the big leagues. And I would imagine that Stephen Kolek's going to get a chance in Kansas City before the season comes to a close. So Freddie doing well, Ryan Bergert doing well, Stephen Kolek doing well. That's kind of how everybody thought this trade might go down. The next trade, Bailey Falter, not sure I need to go over what that start was again, giving up 7 earned runs in 4 innings. He got pushed back to Monday because the Royals didn't want to go back-to-back lefties with Cameron on Saturday and then Falter again on Sunday. So he will make his second start as a Royal against the Nationals, who have really been struggling of late. And he gets to pitch at Kauffman Stadium, maybe a little bit more comfortable than pitching at Fenway Park. As for Evan Sisk, and I believe it was Evan Sisk and Callan Moss. I couldn't think of the name off the top of my head. Evan Sisk so far, trying to see if he has made his debut. My page is refreshing, so I'm stalling as best as I can. He has pitched so far for Indianapolis, so he's in AAA. He's thrown 2 2/3. He has struck out 5. He has walked 1 for a whip of 1.5, but pretty much doing what he was doing in Omaha. A lot of strikeouts. He's only got 1 walk so far, but only 2 2/3 innings. He's got a 3.38 ERA. And like Cam Devaney, I'd be pretty surprised if Evan Sisk doesn't get a shot in September for the Pirates, just considering there should be a lot of openings for the Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen. But Evan Sisk kind of carrying over what he was doing in Omaha anyway. And then for Callan Moss, he has played in 5 games so far for Pittsburgh's minor league affiliate in Greensboro. He's hitting .316 with a .409 OBP and a .421 slug. He has not homered yet. He's got 1 RBI and 1 stolen base. And for the last deal, Mike Yastrzemski, of course, he has been a great pickup for this offense. And it's still very early, so we can stay reserved on that. But in the first 6 games for the Royals, he is OPSing .982 with an OPS plus of 163. He's hitting .313 overall, 3 doubles so far. He does have the home run as well, and he's driven in 3. And as for Junior Marte, he has not pitched yet. for the Giants minor league affiliate. I would guess he would go to A-ball like he was in Columbia for the Royals before getting traded over. So Yaz, done well so far through 6 games. We'll see if he can continue it tomorrow night. Facing a guy the Royals have just never been able to figure out in Joe Ryan. So with that, let's take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's preview a big series in Minnesota. That's next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning to Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcasts. Want to tell you about Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, create the account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Well, I know that everybody is looking forward to tomorrow night's game, another opportunity for the Royals to get to 500, and then hopefully after that on Saturday and Sunday, they can start to build a little bit of a lead. It has been a long time, feels like ages, since the Royals were back over 500. And they'll be taking on a Twins team that, to put it simply, has been gutted since the last time the Royals and Twins squared off. This is a Twins team that did not play well right out of the deadline, but went into Detroit and took 2 of 3 from the Tigers. I would like to say that I feel that says more about Detroit and how they're playing than Minnesota. And I want to say that we touched on this a little bit last night, but for teams that have been gutted, you might have that inspired baseball for the first couple series, maybe the first couple of games, but then things start to even out, the water levels, if you will. And that's what I see happening with Minnesota. Unfortunately, you're not always going to be able to replace the production left from Byron Buxton, from Carlos Correa, from Willie Castro, and especially in the bullpen. You traded away nearly every reliever that you trusted to lock down games. And that's going to be the difference this time when the Royals are facing Minnesota as opposed to the last time they saw them. So going to Friday night, you got Joe Ryan throwing for Minnesota, and you've got Seth Lugo throwing for Kansas City. Lugo on the year, 8-5 with a 3.06 ERA, and Joe Ryan, who has just been so dominant, not just against the Royals. We all know about the numbers against the Royals, but this year in particular. I mean, he has been just vicious with everything he's been throwing. His stuff moves so violently. And tomorrow night, I expect much of the same. Maybe the Royals can finally get to him. We can use the age-old saying of just they're due. They're finally due for a win against him. I just don't know if I'm going to go out there and predict it. So on the year, Joe Ryan, a 2.83 ERA. He struck out 141 and 127 in the third innings. What a treat they get after just facing Garrett Crochet a few days ago. In his last outing against Cleveland, he threw a quality start, went 6 innings, gave up 2 earned, struck out 4 and walked only 1. The start before that, Washington actually got to him a little bit. He only went 5 innings, gave up 4 runs on 6 hits, and only struck out 5. But the start before that against Colorado at Coors Field, say what you want about the Rockies, but 7 innings of 1-run ball. He struck out 11 and didn't walk anybody. So that's been the last 3 for Joe Ryan. Going into this game, here are the numbers for a few Royals against Ryan in their careers. Adam Frazier is hitting .091 in 11 at-bats. Michael Garcia is hitting .273 in 11 at-bats. Randall Grichuk is 1 for 3. Jonathan India is 0 for 5. Kyle Isbell is hitting .071 in 14 at-bats. Nick Lofton's 0 for 2. Luke Mailey's 0 for 2. Vinny Pasquantino's hitting .133 in 15 at-bats. Salvador Perez is hitting .167 in 18 at-bats. Bobby Witt Jr. hitting .240 in 25 at-bats. And Mike Yastrzemski, as we talked about in the previous segment, he's hitting .310 at-bats against Joe Ryan. And then for the Twins, they do have some familiarity with Seth Lugo, but listen to the names in the lineup now. You've got Cody Clemens, who the Royals did see the last time they were at Target Field. You've got Ryan Fitzgerald. You got Mickey Gasper, Ryan Jeffers, Eduardo Julian. You have Keichel as well, Trevor Larnach, Brooks Lee, Royce Lewis. You've got Martin, Brock Rodden, and Vasquez behind the plate, and Matt Wallner. A lot of names that are gone for Minnesota, and the guy with the best numbers would be Christian Vasquez, who's hitting 300 and OPSing at 1,310 at-bats against Seth Lugo. So that's Friday's game. First pitch will be at 7:10. As for Saturday's game, Noah Cameron's going to get the ball, and if you can recall, he did have a stellar outing the last time he threw at Target Field, but the Royals ended up coughing that game away. He will be going up against Bailey Ober, who going into the year, the Royals dominated. Like his ERA was over 9, if I'm not mistaken, but he has pitched well against the Royals this year. The numbers they have against him, Adam Frazier's hitting 111 off Ober, Michael Garcia 083 and 12 at-bats, Kyle Isbell's hitting 333 and 12 at-bats, Vinny Pasquantino 417 and 12 at-bats, Salvador Perez hitting 320 and 25 at-bats. Bobby Witt Jr. is a freak against Bailey Ober, a freak in general, in a good way, I should say, but he's hitting 480 and 25 at-bats against Bailey Ober. As for the Twins, they only have 4 remaining guys who have at-bats against Noah Cameron from that previous matchup at Target Field. Ryan Jeffers went 1 for 3. Larnach was over 3. Brooks Lee was over 3. And Royce Lewis was over 3. He pitched very, very well and has pitched so well this season. A 5-5 record, 2.68 ERA. And as for Ober, he is 4-6 with a 5.38 ERA. Then on Sunday, the Twins have yet to announce a starter, but it will be Ryan Bergert making his second appearance with the Royals. This will be a very early game on Sunday, but always a fun one to have a first pitch that's earlier than 1 o'clock. This will actually be at 12:05, and the game will be on Roku. I'd imagine you can still watch the game on FanDuel Sports Network. It's not showing me at this point in time on the MLB app, but that is another way to watch the game. It will be on Roku, and I don't recall the last time the Royals were on Roku, and I have not seen any baseball game on Roku just yet. I know there has been, but I've just not tuned in, at least for this season. I can't recall when this actually came into play, but I would be pretty surprised if the game was not available on the FanDuel Sports Network. It is that way for Apple TV, as we know, where the Royals tweeted out and say, here's the free link to go and watch the game. Do not believe it's the same thing for Roku. As for the Twins, and if they've seen Ryan Bergert at all, they have not. Not a single player in that lineup, a much different looking lineup, has seen Ryan Bergert. Not that surprising. It is his rookie season, and he was pitching for San Diego. Not sure if Minnesota's going to go with a bullpen game, if they're going to call somebody up, but they just no longer have a rotation that's as solid as it once was. You got Joe Ryan, who's pitching so well this season, but unfortunately, without much of a bullpen, you're going to be asking a lot of Joe Ryan on Friday night. Against the Royals, I'm sure Joe Ryan feels just fine about that. But if Seth Lugo can be on his A game, I like the advantage tomorrow night. I'm not going to go as far to say, well, they're due, because I thought they were due when Joe Ryan pitched in Kansas City, and that was clearly not the case. He shut out the Royals through 6 or 7 innings of work, and the Twins won that game. Every time I feel that they might get to Joe Ryan, it's just an absolute disaster of a game. The good news is Seth Lugo's not facing a lineup like they saw in Boston, where you have to be pretty much perfect for 6 or 7 innings. I'm going to throw it out there. I feel this is going to be a very low-scoring game, a high-stress game, but in the end, I feel the Royals can scratch across a few runs against a depleted Minnesota bullpen, and I feel the Royals bullpen will have a much better series against Minnesota than they had in Boston. And then on Saturday, I mean, Bailey Ober has not been good this year. He's been better against the Royals, but Noah Cameron, I'm not going to bet against him. He unfortunately did not pitch as well in Toronto last weekend. I think we're going to see a better outing from him, and I feel the Royals can really jump on Bailey Ober if they can take game 1. And that is so important in this series. Man, if you can go in there and take one from Joe Ryan, now you can start talking about winning the series, of course, but going one step further and actually sweeping Minnesota and coming back to Kansas City for the Nationals and the White Sox being over 500 for the first time in a long time. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals one of your listens today. For your next, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, it'll be a Mailbag Friday, so get your last questions in now. We'll be recording in the morning. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.